Welcome to my channel, Fast Fate Stories, where fate doesn't waste time. Settle in, subscribe, and let's dive in. In the rain-slick parking lot, Claire pressed a trembling hand to her eyes, the cool dampness of her fingertips grounding her against the storm raging in her chest. The newspaper headline bled in the drizzle, its black ink running like mascara down a broken heart. CEO arrested for $42 million embezzlement, and beneath it, his face was a man who had sworn, with velvet lips and steady eyes, that he would never hurt her. Her husband. Claire swallowed hard. She had thought betrayal reached its peak the night when she opened the bedroom door and found him tangled with her best friend, Persephone, of 15 years. The shock had been sharp, sudden, a knife to her chest. But this embezzlement, Lie's wound in dollar signs and prison bars, was salt in wounds already festering. Her best friend had whispered apologies, tears staining the sheets that still smelled of him. But apologies meant nothing to her when her marriage, her friendships, her trust, all of it, had been slaughtered at once. Now, standing in the grey wash of rain, she continued to rub her tired eyes, wondering if she would ever sleep soundly ever again. The trial moved fast. The evidence was stacked like dominoes against Gordon. Falsified accounts, offshore transfers, whispered deals with men who valued greed over law. Claire didn't watch from the gallery at first. She was too raw, too emotional, too unwilling to let him see her break. But when the subpoenas reached her doorstep, forcing her to testify, she could no longer hide. It was there she first noticed Daniel Hart, the lead prosecutor. Tall, sharp suit, steady voice, eyes that revealed nothing, yet saw everything. He dismantled Gordon's defense with clean precision, his words like surgical strikes. No theatrics, just devastating truth. When Claire took the stand, her voice didn't falter. She told the jury about the lies, the business trips, the documents Gordon had pushed her to sign without explanation. She told them about his arrogance, the way he believed no one could touch him. Gordon glared at her from the defense table, rage simmering behind his eyes. But Daniel's gaze, brief, calm, respectful, gave her something she hadn't expected: strength. On an unseasonably cool Georgia day, the guilty verdict came down in thunder. Gordon was sentenced to several decades in prison, his empire reduced to rubble, his name synonymous with greed. He shouted in court that it was all lies, that he'd be back. But no one believed him, not anymore. Claire watched without flinching. Revenge didn't need fire or blood. It lived in the silence of a cell door slamming shut. She happily closed that chapter of her life, and the divorce was finalized shortly after. Claire sold the penthouse Gordon had insisted they needed to match their status. She burned every luxury purchase he had ever forced on her as a symbol of his power. The designer dresses, the diamonds he gave after every fight, the handbags meant to silence her. She started over in a modest apartment by choice, not by necessity, proving to herself she could stand without his wealth. When the press asked for statements, she did not hide. She stood tall in front of cameras and declared, "He stole from thousands. He lied to everyone. The greatest lie was the one he told me, that we were partners, that he valued trust. He deserves everything that comes to him." Her words went viral. She was no longer the CEO's wife. She was the voice of the betrayed who refused to be broken. She expected never to see Daniel again outside of court. But one afternoon, weeks later, she spotted him at a bookstore, balancing a stack of case law with a paperback thriller. "Claire," he said, almost cautiously. "Mr. Hart," she replied. "Daniel," he corrected with a faint smile. They talked longer than expected, drifting from courtrooms to books, to the best coffee in the neighborhood. But there was something in the way he lingered, not pushing, not prying, simply being present. For the first time in years, she spoke without feeling judged, and he listened without trying to fix things. She had learned to spot manipulation, the smooth lies dressed in charm. Daniel carried none of it. He carried patience. Months passed. Claire continued to rebuild. She rediscovered her love of painting, the canvases that Gordon once mocked as a hobby that doesn't pay. She reconnected with friends outside the poisoned circle he had cultivated. She learned to laugh again, not in defiance, but in joy. And Daniel became part of that rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. He never pressed, never presumed. He was simply there, showing up with takeout after her gallery opening, sending her articles he thought she'd enjoy, asking about her day like it mattered. She in turn would listen to Daniel talk about glimpses of his childhood, adulthood, and law school. She learned that he followed in his father's footsteps, as he was a lawyer as well, but is recently retired. One evening, as the sun began its descent from her apartment window, Daniel stood beside her. "Do you ever think about him?" he asked quietly. Claire's lips curved in a small, sharp smile. "I was young when I married Gordon, and I didn't come from money. I didn't know a lot about how the world worked. It didn't take much for him to sweep me off my feet." She continued to glance out at the sky as the evening journeyed on. "If I only knew then what I know now, I would have never married him, no matter how much money he had. So yes, I think about him. Not with longing, only with relief that is not my problem anymore." Daniel reached for her hand, tentative but warm. She let him take it. For the first time in years, she felt something new bloom inside her. Not dependence, not desperation, but choice. As they continued to enjoy a quiet evening with coffee after dinner, Claire's phone buzzed. It was Persephone. "That's weird," she said, puzzled. "I thought I'd blocked her number." She declined the call and placed it back on the table. "She's despicable, maybe more cruel than Gordon for what she did to me." Daniel's eyes found hers and bore into them. "Because she's carrying Gordon's child." She looked at him now and tears came easily. Threaded throughout the trial was the most hurtful lie of all. The children they never had that she so desperately wanted. For years Gordon told her he couldn't father children, that it was a medical impossibility. She had cried, grieved, even blamed herself. But that night she walked in on him. She heard words that still replayed in her mind like poison. Words that Gordon whispered to Persephone that he didn't know Claire heard just before she had charged in the room. "You might get pregnant. We forgot to use protection. Claire can't know." The betrayal wasn't only of her body or her trust, it was of her future. She knew then that Gordon absolutely wanted children, just not with her. Unable to stand just one tear fall from her beautiful eyes, Daniel went to Claire and pulled her into his arms. He said nothing at first, just held her close until she reached for him. He exhaled, a sound that trembled between restraint and need, before his lips claimed hers. The kiss was unhurried, patient, yet extraordinarily charged. She wanted him, with a desperation that left no space for doubt. Her body answered his touch with a hunger she had long thought extinguished. When he suddenly pulled away, sharp frustration crossed her eyes, and she forcefully pulled him back to her. He exhaled again, a quiet surrender, and relief that she wanted him as bad as he wanted her. The kiss was no longer patient. It was fierce, aching, charged with years of silence, and everything they had both held back. She clung to him, as if letting go meant falling back into the life she had escaped. After spending their first warm, beautiful, tender night together, Daniel studied Claire as she slept. As the warm morning rays from the sun flickered through the window, Daniel smiled and gently kissed Claire on the forehead. He loved her so much and told her so last night, after they made love. "All I want to do is love you and protect you," he had said. "Let you shine as bright as you want to shine." It gave him joy to know that she was in his arms, safe and resting soundly after learning that she didn't sleep much. When she did awake, it seemed for the first time in years she wasn't surviving. She was alive. 6 months passed. Daniel and Claire were now married, and Claire was pregnant. Gordon would write letters from prison, filled with excuses and half apologies. Claire would never open them. His world was iron bars and regret. Her world was fresh paint on a canvas, laughter in her and Daniel's home, and finding real love in a man who saw her not as a victim, not as a scandal, but as herself. The headline that once shattered her became the spark of her rebirth. Claire found her victory, not in destroying Gordon, but in finally, fully reclaiming her life, with Daniel by her side. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next tale. Your support means everything and helps bring more stories to life. Until next time.